Te Aorerekura has become so important to me, not just in my ministerial work, but the personal connection to this kaupapa has always been a priority for me, whether I'm an MP or a minister, or just as a wahine Māori mama, grandmother. We all want to create a world where we can feel like our tamariki and our mokopuna, that everyone is safe. And of course, I've often spoken publicly about my own experiences of living through and dealing with family violence, sexual violence, harm, and what that can do to people.
I have to say, it was hard and going in there with preconception ideas of how mainstream operate. And the exciting thing was that once we had worked it out, that we could get away from mainstream and actually be who we are and dive into our own puna and come out with the answers. Well, that's where Te Aorerekura could have come from. It became exciting and it became empowering. And once we realized that, we thought, holy hell, we can actually be ourselves. We can plant a seed and water it and let it grow.
That we need to start focusing far more closely on our little people, on our children. We need to be teaching them about what empathy is and what compassion is. It's very, very hard to hurt somebody if you feel empathy for them. So I think that's an important priority. We need to make sure that we have an equitable approach across the country and across services. We know that we have service gaps still, and we need to eliminate those service gaps. And I think probably the other sort of priority for me is we need to be working in genuine partnership with government. We can't keep operating in an us and them model.
So the key measure of success in terms of the strategy will be seeing how the feedback and the recommendations from the victim survivors that Backbone heard from are incorporated into the action. So many victim survivors said in their feedback that the strategy was just more words, and that's not what they need. They need urgent action now. So key action in areas like the support and services that are available, the justice response, the way that offenders and the system is accountable to victim survivors, and also in the prevention of violence and abuse in New Zealand, so through education and awareness programs. So it'll be really important to see those things represented in the actions and how the government makes itself accountable in the strategy so that victim survivors can go back and hold the government to account for meeting those priorities or not. And then how victim survivors will be able to be involved in the continual evolving nature of the strategy going forward. That's going to be critical.
The experience of this consultation was, to me, quite unusual in that we were empowered as communities to be able to engage. Government did work with us to make sure that we were able to reach people and also facilitate these conversations in some really safe spaces. These conversations are difficult for most people to have in kind of group settings, and the addition of being part of the rainbow community or being part of the trans community, having those conversations in safe spaces was a really important thing for our communities.
I'd like to ask the question, why don't they? Because I think quite often the community is asked is, why should government do this? My question is straight, the answer to that question is, why doesn't government do that? And that's the answer to that question. And it's a very blunt question, because the people that are in government actually belong to that community. They are not absent or separate to the community they are in. For some reason, there seems to be this invisible line. When we talk about government, we're talking about an invisible people and entity. But in actual fact, when our people in government and within those offices behave as part of the community, we might see change.
So when we say all New Zealanders, this is a shift to a system that works for everyone and instinctively and intuitively includes tāngata whaikaha Māori, deaf and disabled people, adults at risk, their families and whānau. So a system that offers disabled people choice of either mainstream specialist services or both through equitable funding of twin tracks with no wrong door.
Racism requires changes in multiple places, so we do need a much more holistic visibility and approach to really address equity, and to have a system that is just for everyone, and inclusive of everyone.
Often we have conversations amongst ourselves, and even say I'm having a conversation with a friend that the conversation steers towards relationship, and we often laugh because we often quote, relationship is only everything. And I'm not talking about just the relationship between government, Crown and Māori. What I am talking about is the relationships within government. So let's say you see how your ministers treat their DCs, and their DCs, it all filters down. So, social transformation actually starts with individuals. And so when we have everyone on that hierarchical tier treating everyone with respect and keeping everyone's mana intact, then we might have a chance of really embedding what it means to be in relationship. So what I'm saying is that they have to start with themselves. And then, hopefully they'll be able to extend that out and meet whānau in that same mana enhancing relationship that we all desire.